Assalamualaikum and hi.
I'm Nurin.
I'm Athirah.
I'm Syifa.
I'm Syafiqa.
I'm Ain.
I'm Bahiyah.
And we will discuss concepts relating to the language and the brain. I'll start by explaining the theme's definition. Language and the brain are intricately connected, with the left hemisphere of the brain being mainly responsible for our ability to comprehend and produce language. Dr. Hanani claimed that several research conducted in clinical and experimental settings confirmed the hypothesis of left hemisphere dominance for language, finding that around 97% of individuals demonstrate language representation in the left hemisphere. According to the New York Academy of Science, the left hemisphere's dominance in language processing is called lateralization. It is the idea that each hemisphere is responsible for different functions, with the left hemisphere specialized for language. However, it is important to note that the right hemisphere also contributes to aspects of language, particularly in identifying broader aspects of language and experience. Overall, language dominance in the left hemisphere arises from specialized brain areas that allow us to comprehend and communicate effectively.
Thank you, Athirah. So I'm going to explain the concept of tongue slips or slips of the tongue. Slips of the tongue are one of the speech errors in which a sound or word is produced in the wrong place as it is supposed to. Because the speakers already know what they intend to say, they're not conscious of the error they made. It happens when you want to say one thing but end up saying something completely different. It frequently occurs while speaking, but it can also happen while typing or writing. For example, a bride says, "Tomorrow is my big day" instead of "Tomorrow is my big day" due to excitement, which shows the interchange of two initial sounds or the transposition of initial consonants in a pair of words. According to cognitive scientist Gary Dell, concepts, words and sounds are interconnected in three networks, which are the semantic, lexical and phonological networks, and speech arises from their interaction, but occasionally function by tripping over each other. Slips of the tongue could happen because there is some glitch in the left hemisphere of the brain. There is a frontal lobe that contains broca's area, which is associated with speech ability. This area controls our spoken language, and it is proven that even though slips of the tongue are not a medical condition, language is still situated in the left hemisphere of the brain. When one speaks faster, his mind is a fraction of a second ahead, causing his words to sound quite different and have wholly distinct meanings. Our tongues and lips may have a difficult time keeping up with our brain's lightning-fast movement when it is faster than our mouth, resulting in slips of the tongue. So, let's watch a video about slips of the tongue or spoonerism.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young girl called Rindy Seller, who lived in a large mansion.
The video shows that a man tells a story about Cinderella and mispronounces the word Cinderella as a Rindy Seller. Although the word can make sense, but the r sound in the word Rindy switched with the s sound in the word Seller, which indicates the two sounds are exchanged, or we call it as spoonerisms. This can happen when we get the phrase right. Our brain has successfully coordinated this frame with the sound of a word. Spoonerisms could happen when this coordination breaks down, often because of the interference of internal and external stimulus such as sudden noises, distraction, and nervousness. Again, I want to highlight that slips of the tongue is not in a medical condition, but still it happened.
Now I'm going to talk about tip of the tongue. Tip of the tongue, or letologica, is the experience of being confident that one knows and actually knows the correct word, but fails to produce and retrieve the word from memory. Psychologists claim that they have a temporary inability to produce a well-known word, but they know the information. They just can't access it at the moment. Tip of the tongue can be extremely frustrating for the speaker, but it will be a huge relief when they finally found the words they have been searching for. The tip of the tongue is very universal, as it occurs to most people regardless language they use. This is so common that some even use it for humor purpose in the entertainment industry, although sometimes the joke is on the speaker. One of the mistakes that is caused by tip of the tongue is malapropism. According to Merriam-Webster, malapropism is an unintentional humorous distortion or misuse of a word or phrase. Malapropism happens when two words that sound similar to each other are interchanged. Our brain is capable of language capacity, particularly in the left hemisphere, which has some areas involved in spoken language control. Wernicke's area, Broca's area, arcuate fasciculus, and motor cortex all play important roles in our language ability. Having one of these broken down may result in a medical condition that requires treatment. Tongue tip, as we all know, is a temporary inability to retrieve and produce a well-known word from memory, which basically means that it is just a common, harmless condition that happens to most of us regardless of what language we spoke. Although tongue tips are not considered a medical condition, they do indicate that language is located in the left hemisphere of the brain because they can occur when the left hemisphere is glitched. According to a study, malapropism occurs when the speaker makes a mistake in the retrieval process and produce near misses words, hence resulting in a nonsensical utterance. A neural cause of malapropism occurs where memory is accessed based on sound alike and may result to accessing words in the same phonological neighborhood. We can see the case of malapropism happen in one of Mike Tyson's interview in a boxing match in 2002. Mike Tyson, a famous boxer, was answering the reporter's questions after losing a fight in a boxing match. Here, he got a question on what is his next plan for where would he go next in his career. He answered, "I might just fade into Bolivian." Instead of Bolivian, what he actually meant is oblivion, the state in which someone or something has been forgotten and is no longer famous or important. How can this happen? Bolivian and oblivion sounds very similar to each other. When there's a glitch in the left hemisphere of the brain, tongue tips or malapropism that occurs is most likely to affect the speaker's confusion with words that sounded similar and resulted in choosing the wrong word but still in the same phonological neighborhood. Mike maybe tried to access the word oblivion in his memory, but because of the memory is based on sound alike, the tendency to choose the wrong word Bolivian can be happening as well. Bolivian instead of oblivion wasn't too far, however. The hilarious mistakes remains one of the funniest famous malapropism.
Alright Athirah, right now I am going to explain on my topic, which is one of the language areas in the brain, which is Broca aphasia. But before that, let me explain about the aphasia. Aphasia is a communication condition that can affect how you speak because it has damaged some part of the brain that can disrupt how the brain works. The majority of those with aphasia are middle-aged or older. However, anyone can get it, even young children. It may affect the way we write, speak, and comprehend both spoken and written language. Broca aphasia is located in the left side of the brain and is responsible for the speech and motor movement. It was found by a French surgeon, Paul Broca, in the 1860s specific part of the brain that are damaged that led to extreme difficulty in producing spoken language. Now, let's get deeper into the topic. Broca aphasia causes injury to speech and language-related brain region, including the inferior frontal gyrus in the left hemisphere. It is one of the part of the brain that is responsible for the speech and motor movement. Usually, it happens because of stroke. However, brain trauma may also be the cause. A lesion in the Broca region causes a breakdown between one thought and their ability to communicate through language. As a result, patients frequently feel they have something to say but cannot do it. In other words, they are unable to convey what they see and think verbally. The majority of the patient's speech consists of brief utterances of 4 words and they have trouble building grammatical sentences. For some people, verb usage can be more challenging compared to noun. For instance, a person with Broca aphasia might say walk dog, which means I'll walk the dog. People with Broca aphasia often comprehend other people's speech to some extent. As a result, they are frequently cautious of their challenges and prone to frustration. Those with Broca aphasia can use melodic intonation as a therapy. Melodic intonation depends on the fact that Broca aphasia frequently spares musical talent. Therefore, the speech therapist urges the patient who have troubles producing speech to try to express themselves using musical tone. Clinical trials have indicated that this strategy has promise. There were cases of people with Broca aphasia where an 80-year Japanese woman presented with sudden onset of speech disturbance and confusion when she was riding a bicycle, and suddenly she felt unwell and subsequently could not find words to express her thoughts. She was later brought to the emergency department for evaluation by a pedestrian. She was very alert but looked very anxious, frustrated, and confused. When a physician asked her question, she spoke hesitantly and non-fluently because she was not able to find words to respond. Her neurological examination was normal and a laboratory study showed high cholesterol. Diffusion-weighted MRI revealed there's an infection involving the Broca area. The left middle cerebral artery distal portion has significant stenosis according to MR angiography. Pure motor aphasia, which is Broca aphasia, was the patient ailment. Later, she had a smooth recovery after receiving conservation care from a speech therapist. Now, I'll pass it to my friend Syafiqa to explain about the topic.
Thank you, Bahiyah.
To begin, aphasia is a disorder that causes difficulties in producing and understanding linguistic terms or forms. Besides Broca's aphasia, there is also Wernicke's aphasia, commonly known as receptive aphasia. Wernicke's aphasia is a language disease which oneself is struggling with the auditory comprehension. It is because the posterior speech cortex, also known as Wernicke's area, which located in the left hemisphere, is being exposed to brain injuries such as stroke and brain trauma that resulted to unwanted circumstances. Wernicke's area is quite close with the auditory cortex, thus it may also affect on what we hear. Fun fact, Wernicke's area was named after a German doctor, Karl Wernicke, who discovered it in the 1870s. This part of left hemisphere is really essential for us because it helps us in understanding and comprehending spoken language. Despite the comprehension difficulties, the patient who undergo the Wernicke's aphasia can produce a fluent speech with a normal rate, rhythm, and grammar. Flowing next, the patient with Wernicke's aphasia also have the difficulties in finding a suitable and the right words for a particular object. We refer it as anomia. As an illustration, a small animal with two wings that goes up to the sky and left for a bird. According to a case study conducted by the Aphasia Center, there was a 65-year-old man named Phil who considered as a severe Wernicke's aphasia due to stroke. He was having the difficulties in making people understand him. Next, he also can't comprehend what was being told to him. And so his wife got irritated and frustrated as they couldn't communicate anymore. Phil also wanted to order for himself and his wife at a restaurant, and he also wanted to make an email for his grandchildren. On the bright side, Phil can use the right intonation and rhythm for a conversation. Nonetheless, only 2% of what he said made any sense. For instance, the sucker must the sun. But after he joined the Aphasia Center for a 6-week program, he now could address visa online as well as writing to his family and checking emails. Aside from that, his interaction with his wife had improved productively and Phil successfully understand what others say, and he managed to avoid nonsense in his speech. I think that's all for me, and I'm gonna pass the spotlight to Syifa. Hanani.
Thank you, Syafiqa, for the explanation on Wernicke's aphasia. Now, let me explain to you about conduction aphasia, also known as associative aphasia. It's a language disorder that can be detected by the way patients speak. According to National Institute of Health, conduction aphasia patient has an isolated impairment in their ability to repeat simple words. But this uncommon form of aphasia keeps both expression and comprehension unaffected. Additionally, it is also defined by naming difficulties and frequent speech errors, despite generally fluent and grammatically correct speech output. Flynn Rehab claims that most often, conduction aphasia patients are aware of their mistake and make an effort to fix them. For instance,
ini the beninging, ini the beninging.
if this really happens in real life, that person might suffer from conduction aphasia. Nevertheless, they will try to pronounce until they can pronounce in the beginning correctly. Simply put, the speech production area cannot receive what the speaker hear and understand due to injury at arcuate fasciculus at the left hemisphere of the brain. As the theme is language and the brain, conduction aphasia is heavily related to impairment in left hemisphere of the brain, which is arcuate fasciculus. According to National Aphasia Association, injury to speech and language brain areas on the left hemisphere can cause conduction aphasia. To give you a visual representation, this area is known as arcuate fasciculus, and any damage that is imposed to this particular part will eventually impact on person's ability to speak correctly according to the instruction. Thus, our speaking and language acquisition ability greatly relies on the left hemisphere of the brain to be able to communicate properly. Now, let's take a look at this video by Howard Hughes Medical Institute.
1, 2, 4, 5, 6, better send point.
As you can see, the patient exhibits clear understanding of the instruction that asks her to count from 1 until 10, and she fluently articulates them by saying 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, better send. Besides, she also mentioned
You started.
I was done.
Okay. 1.
that shows she clearly understands the instruction but struggling to pronounce them out loud. This showcases a common conduction aphasia patient behavior. Throughout the video, the patient tried her best to answer all the questions even though she mispronounced some words while counting the numbers. But not to worry, people with conduction aphasia can recover through speech therapy and many other alternatives.
A feral child, described by the APA, is a child who supposedly has been raised by wild animals and isolated from human interaction and care, resulting in a lack of exposure to social norms and behavior. These children are severely neglected and lack language, social interaction, and basic human skills. Because of their isolated upbringing, feral children may exhibit characteristics similar to those of wild animals. What is the relationship between the dim and feral child? As previously said, language is mainly processed in the left hemisphere of the brain. However, in the case of feral children, they are isolated from human contact and lack the exposure to socialization and language, causes them to experience severe hindrance in language development. According to Medium website, the lack of linguistic stimulation and socialization in the early years of feral children hinders the proper development of the left hemisphere language-related areas. So, feral children's brain development for language is affected when they grow up without talking to people, causing the parts of the brain that are responsible for language to not develop properly. Feral children's study reveals how isolation from human contact affects language development. It shows the importance of early socialization and language exposure for normal linguistic growth, supporting the concept of a critical period. Thus, it highlights the importance of the environment and social interaction in shaping the language dominant functions of the left brain hemisphere. Oksana Malaya, an 8-year-old feral child from Ukraine, was found in 1991 after living with dogs and being neglected by her own parents. Fullerton Batten stated that she imitated the dog behavior, like walking on all fours and barking. Oksana faced challenges learning language and social skills due to her long isolation and wild upbringing. Despite having some basic language skills prior to her isolation, she was considered entirely nonverbal. After being placed in an orphanage, she made some advancement in her language and social skills, but faced challenges due to the critical period passing. After that, Oksana received specialized intervention and therapy to help develop her language and also social skills. Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy claims that Oksana's language acquisition progressed gradually over time. She practiced understanding and producing simple words like yes, no, and her own name. While her language abilities had limitations, her capacity to communicate and engage with people improved. Oksana exemplifies the brain's ability to adapt and learn even in challenging situations. It highlights the importance of early intervention and intense therapy for language development, demonstrating the potential for linguistic growth beyond critical period. That is all from me and my friends. We hope you learned something from the video. Thank you!